what is the minimum things I can do to still make progress and be proud or happy or satisfied with what's getting done. And so, with social media, I feel like we're told that we should be posting 3 times a day and using 30 hashtags and doing these kind of stories, and that takes a lot of time. And so with different seasons of life, I've decided, okay, I'm just gonna do, I've started looking more at analytics. Like a friend said, like what's actually moving the needle and putting your focus there. And so, sometimes I'm like, okay, during some seasons of life, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna post twice a week and that's it. Or I've started scheduling just 1 newsletter a month, and I'll be happy with that. I've connected with people, I've shared information.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Meaningful Moneymaking Show. Today's guest is Lindsey Nubern. She is really interesting. She has a lot going on. In fact, the title of this episode is basically making a living doing what you like, being who you are and doing what you do, and just turning that into the way that you have a meaningful money making career. So I'm going to read you her bio really quick so we can all get to know her a little bit up front. She's a travel writer, she's an author, a photographer, co-founder of NuVenture Travels, where she shares travel tips, conversation starters for the road, and about her family's #NuVentures. Lindsey and her husband Adam traveled the world full-time from 2014 to 2018, camper vanning New Zealand, backpacking in Southeast Asia, traveling Europe, and then camper vanning around the US and Canada in their tiny casita travel trailer. You may have seen Lindsey and her husband Adam find their camper on HGTV's Tiny House Hunters. Lindsey has written 3 books inspired by the lessons she's learned on her world travels: the game 501 Questions, a travel game, her children's book, Puth the Traveling Pelican, and her guide, How to Buy a Camper Van in New Zealand. Lindsey, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen. I'm so pumped.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you here. So, one of the lessons that I learned in business is sharing your mistakes and how you solve those mistakes to help people grow. So, this is our inaugural episode of the Meaningful Money Making Show. And the first time I recorded this, we had a beautiful interview. It was so amazing. It was so interesting. You guys are just going to love Lindsey. But I realized literally the second to last question that I forgot to hit record. And Lindsey was so patient. She agreed to come back on. So thank you so much for your patience. And I look forward to sharing your story with the audience again.
No, I had a great time chatting with you the first time, and I'm so honored that you invited me back on after we had our conversation. And I'm sure if I start a podcast in the future, I'm going to have that same thing happen. So,
Yeah. Well, mistakes happen in every business. So just remember, just get up, back up, try again. And I find that when I share things with my audiences that you mess up on, those are the most important lessons, and they're the things you remember. And they're the things you remember yourself, right? Like, I'm never, ever going to forget to hit record ever again on this show.
oh yeah, I mean, us, even with me writing about our travels, the number one things people are excited to read about are all our mishaps and the
Yeah.
problems we've had. Yeah, so that's real life. Whenever you're launching something, it's a good reminder that nothing is perfect, and
Yeah.
yeah, you gotta roll with the punches and figure it out and problem solve and try again sometimes. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of your adventures, tell us kind of a high level overview of what you do in your business.
So I am an author and photographer and blogger, and I share about our travels. I share, uh, our gear tips. I'm writing about our favorite travel books right now that we've found. Um, yeah, and conversation starters, for while you're traveling, because there's a lot of dull moments, while you're on a road trip or you're at the airport, that instead of scrolling your phone or, watching a movie or whatever, we can turn to each other and have fun with one another on our travels in those kind of in between moments.
Just be humans together for a change.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what is the most meaningful thing about your business?
I would say connecting people through the questions that I have in my question game and then in my children's book. Um, you know, so it all kind of started when I was with my children's book. I pose a question at the end, like, what was the biggest lesson you learned from Pootie the traveling pelican? And I put that in there as a way for parents or teachers to connect with their kids or students. And I was working at a corn maze, and I was reading a pumpkin book to kids, and I asked them what they learned from the story at the end, and they blew me away with their answers. So I wanted to,
Mm,
when I was writing my own children's book, I wanted to put that in there. And then with my, and I'm still like when I go to schools and share the story with the kids, I'm blown away by the lessons that they learn and all the different things that they learned from this one story. They they're amazing. These kids are amazing. So I thought that would be a good opportunity for parents and teachers to connect with their students and kids. And then with my question game, it really came out of Adam and I were on a ferry ride in Greece, and we thought we were going to work during the 4 hour ferry ride, but we didn't have Wi Fi. And so we were just like, what do we do? And I had pulled out questions from the first part of our travels where we were road tripping, and we had one of the most memorable conversations um, in our marriage. And we've been married. We just celebrated 8 years. So um,
congrats.
yeah, so it was amazing to me how just uh, you can get stuck in the same conversations with people you know really well, and pulling out new questions, sparks conversation to go to a new topic, or you learn new things about people that you thought you knew really well. And so I started the question game to share those questions with people, and I'm hearing people are learning new things about their kids or their grandparents. I've learned so many new things about my parents and my grandparents. So just connecting people and having people think and chat about things that they haven't, it opens your mind, it opens your perspective to what's possible.
That's awesome. So, speaking of the question game, we thought it'd be kind of fun to have as part of the program where you asked me three of the questions from your book, and then we had your husband pick three questions for me to ask you as those conversation starters so people can kind of enjoy that, remember the questions, ask somebody later today, a coworker, a friend, a family member. So, did you want to get started with the first question?
Yeah, I do. I'm excited to ask you these. Okay, so
Awesome.
this is from the game 501 Questions, a travel game,
hmm
and there's four categories. Would you rather, if you could tell me about, in travel trivia. So I'll start with a would you rather.
Okay.
Okay, so Jen, would you rather go to the outback in Australia or Fiordland in New Zealand, and why?
Um, So I think I'd rather go to the Fjordland in New Zealand. First reason why would be Lord of the Rings. Like the scenery just looked gorgeous. My parents and my brother and his wife actually went to New Zealand and they said it was really stunning and gorgeous. And I'm slightly terrified of Australia, like with all the snakes and spiders and things that are trying to murderize you. That I haven't heard that New Zealand has the same reputation. So I would pick New Zealand.
I totally agree with you on everything you shared.
Yeah.
The spiders that you see in photos in Australia freak me out. So,
Yeah, and it's not like here we have black widows like all the time around my house. So there's like that's one thing. Like I still hate it, but it's one thing. But there just based on some of the stuff I read, and it's probably exaggerated because there's a lot of people that live in Australia, but it just seems like the whole country is trying to like eat you or kill you or maybe both. Like
yeah, we camper vanned around New Zealand, and it was incredible. The scenery is exactly like your family shared. It's mind blowing, and yeah, it's incredible. We talked about back or camper vanning around Australia, and the idea of what's there really freaks me out. So I
yeah.
totally agree with you.
Yeah. Maybe someday I'll get brave and visit anyways, but like I'm scared. Like,
I don't blame you.
yeah. Okay, your turn. The first question your husband sent for me to ask you from the book is a would you rather question. And it's would you rather bike across 10 European countries along the Danube River or walk Spain's Camino del Santiago Trail?
My first instinct is I would rather walk because biking freaks me out. I have this fear of like going downhill out of control and scraping my face off. I don't know
Ugh.
where that came from. It probably stems from an experience I had when I was little, you know. Uh, but Adam is a huge biker, and so we do have this dream together as a family to bike along the Danube River, but it really scares me, and it's going to take a lot of courage to take that on because I don't know what's ahead, you know, on that trail, and so going
Yeah.
downhill out of control freaks me out.
I think he's maybe trying to drop hints then if that was one of the questions that he chose. Like
I know. We did a long trip this summer, and it was an eye opener to how much training I have ahead of me to be able to
Mm,
keep up with him. So
yeah. Now I've heard really good things about the trail in Spain. There's this lady, her like trail name is Dixie. She has a YouTube channel.
okay.
Oh, I wish I could remember the name of it. If I can find it, maybe I'll link it in the description. But she's done the triple crown of hiking with the Appalachian Trail and the Pacific Crest, and then I think maybe there's one in Canada or something. There's like three really really long trails, and then she and her sister last year did the trail in Spain,
Hmm.
and they said it was really fun. And her sister, for the best of my knowledge, isn't really a hiker like she is, and they designed it so that you just go and you stop like every day, and it was kind of a pilgrimage trail, so they kind of design it so anyone can do it. But yeah, I think that's what I would pick too. I have not quite the scrape my face off fear, but like yeah, I'm not as good with bicycles anymore as a grown up, very far removed from my bike riding days as a child.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man. I
Yeah.
am super curious about learning what Dixie has learned on each one of her
Oh, she's
hiking
amazing.
trips. Whoa.
Yeah, she does like mini documentaries basically, and
Okay.
that shares along the way. And sometimes she'll upload in different things and then do kind of a summary at the end also. And she does all sorts of gear reviews. And yeah, she's really, she seems like a genuinely awesome, amazing person too. Like I love supporting people like that.
Yeah, totally. I need to check her out. So thanks for
Yeah.
sharing.
Yes, I will put a link in the description.
Cool. That's awesome.
Cool.
Okay, I'm going to do a if you could question for you.
Okay.
Okay, so if you could try any extreme sport, which one would you try?
Um, I don't know if it counts as an extreme sport because it's like in the Olympics, but the ski jump one where they go down the ramp and then fly in the air, like it's always fascinated me. And I would probably crash and die at the end, but I think that bit between the crashing and dying and the launching would be really fun.
Oh my gosh. I'm like blown away. I forgot about that sport. I don't know what it's called, but wow, that's
Yeah,
incredible.
I think it's just ski jumping, I think is what it's called, but I'm not positive.
Oh
But
my
yeah,
gosh. And you have to get your ankles and the skis in a perfect position.
yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it seems like the landings are generally like if you know what you're doing, pretty smooth, right? So
Hmm.
like if I landed okay and then tumbled a bit at the end, maybe it'd be okay as long as you like landed on your skis. But like it's not like snowboarding. Like I tried, oh my goodness. So when I was in college, I lived in Reno, Nevada,
Hmm.
and there's ski resorts right there, and they would run promotions for the college students to get passes for really cheap. And so my best friend and I one year decided we were going to do this whole thing. She'd skied in the past. I thought I'd be cool and try snowboarding. I bought a board. We got matching ski jackets, like the whole thing, right? And I was just that whole like not catching your edge and not it's mostly falling is what I did rather than snowboarding. And there was this one time, like this is my Jen might be blonde story. Is it was spring, right? And so it was icy. It had been sunny for a while. There was ice everywhere. So I get off the ramp, the chair lift,
Yeah.
and I was so proud of myself because for the first time I didn't fall on my face getting off the damn chairlift.
I'm laughing because I've done this too. So that's why I'm
Right.
laughing.
And so it's like, okay, maybe today's the day. And so I sit down and strap in properly and then get going. And a little while's down, I fall and I happen to fall on ice. And I'm like, well, that sucked. It hurt a bit.
Yeah.
It was warm enough that I don't even know if I was wearing my coat. And I wasn't wearing gloves because it was just a warm spring day. And so I get up and, go down farther to the hill, fall down and notice there's blood in the snow. And I'm like, well, that sucks. Somebody's bleeding.
Oh no.
And then I get up, fall, go down the hill, fall down again, notice there's blood in the snow
Oh
again.
no.
It's like, well, that's strange. This person, there must be falling where I'm falling. There's blood in the snow again. And I get up, go down the hill, fall down again, blood in the snow, realize it's me
Yeah.
that has this nice, because it's so cold, I just didn't feel it. And I must have scraped it on the ice. I have this gash in my hand.
Oh.
Yeah, it didn't quite go. It was a good start, and then it just ended poorly. But I did indeed think this person must be falling where I'm falling, and didn't even question it at the time.
Oh man, snowboarding is so difficult when you're learning.
Yeah.
I've had some like bad head stories too, where you fall hard and just nail your head.
Yes. Oh my goodness. My ski goggles ended up about 6 foot that way, and
Yeah.
my hat flew off my head and ended up 6 foot the other side. I'm like, I don't even know how the hat came off.
It's so painful, and you really have to like push yourself mentally to get through snowboarding.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I only tried 1 year.
Yeah.
I tried.
Yeah. I was snowboarding, and the last time I went, I had stopped because I was like on my toe side, and
Mhm.
I stopped, and this guy was coming at me, and he freaked out, I guess, because I was stopped, which I shouldn't have done. But he
Right.
wiped me out. He took out my legs, like he
Ah,
ran right into my shins, and so yeah,
wow.
the snowboarding is dangerous if you don't know what you're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, that always really freaked me out, because it's like a metal edge around the snowboard.
Mhm.
As somebody who doesn't do winter sports all that much, I didn't realize until I bought a board that there was so all I could picture was somebody hitting me in the shins with this metal edge of of a snowboard
I
and
know.
scars.
I know, and then
Yeah.
when people are like zipping by you so fast,
Yeah.
because they know what they're doing, and there's so many people, on the slope, it's intimidating. So
Yes. Yeah. Cool. Let's go on to question number 2 for you. So this one is an if you could.
okay,
And the question is, if you could, would you be surprised with a hot air balloon ride or a skydiving trip? Which would you rather have between the two of those? Hot air balloon, skydiving.
I think if I were to be surprised by that, I would. I think hot air balloon ride, and I think because a couple years ago I went to the Albuquerque Balloon Festival,
Uh-huh.
and that was incredible. I really want to make that a family tradition.
Mhm.
It blew my mind. They blow up like right there in front of
Yes.
you, and you have to move out of the way for it to
Mhm.
continue blowing up. So you've
Yes.
been.
Yeah, well, not to Albuquerque, but I was spoiled rotten in Reno, in that they had the Reno air balloon races as
Yeah.
well. And the best part about it was when there was 2 semesters that I had an 8 o'clock in the morning class at the University of Nevada. And so that's when they're launching is right around that time.
Mm-hmm.
So as I was driving into college, I'd be basically underneath a canopy
What?
of hot air balloons, which was fun. And they had Dawn Patrol. I don't know if you did that.
Oh
Did they
yeah.
have that at Albuquerque? Yeah. So for those that don't know, it's 5 in the morning or something ridiculous before the sun's up. And so they use fire, of course, to heat the air in the balloons. And so they line up, usually in most years, it's 5 balloons, and then they twinkle them. So they light their balloons in different sequences, or they all light them at the same time for photo opportunities. For whatever reason, they usually use the Chariots of Fire song when they launch them up into the air. And then you see these lit up balloons rising high into the sky, into the darkness. And then the sun would come up and they'd start doing everybody else's for the actual races, part of the balloon races.
Whoa,
Yeah.
that was a normal part of your day, seeing hot air balloons. That is cool.
One week a year, yeah. And the coolest thing, I think, my story from that is when I had kids, they were I don't know how old they were. They were maybe 6 and 8 or something like that. And there's this guy, and he had a Darth Vader balloon that
Oh yeah.
is the head of Darth Vader.
Hmm.
And he was such a cool guy. He loved kids. And so basically they would kind of keep the balloon tethered. You would let the kids go on the balloon for free,
Hmm.
and they'd take them up, maybe 30 feet into the air and then bring them back down. So my 2 kids got to be in the Darth Vader balloon for a little while. And
Whoa!
that was a story that they still remember to this day.
Yeah, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow, what a special opportunity. I remember when I was there, Darth Vader went up with Yoda at the same
Oh,
time. So
nice.
that was pretty cool to see. I was there by myself because Adam, my friend had already been, and I went really early in the morning, and Adam was on a bike trip. And so I was
Mhm.
by myself, and I had a blast by
Yeah.
myself at the balloon festival. It was incredible.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like really lame. Oh, balloon festival, really? But like if you ever have the chance to go to one, they are so amazing.
They are.
It's peaceful and exciting all at the same time
Yeah.
somehow. Like
You're right. You're right. I just felt like a kid again. I was so
Yeah.
excited. Like, what
Mhm.
character's coming up now? That was so
Yeah.
cool. So,
Yeah. And if you have kids, a lot of the times, at least the one in Reno, they have these like trading cards or collector cards or whatever. And
mm,
so the kids can run around to all the different balloons and get a card from somebody standing in front of the balloon so you can like collect them all. And it's a,
yeah, I didn't
yeah.
see that. That is so cool.
Maybe it's just a Reno thing, but yeah, it was a fun thing for them to do every year.
And then they have the races afterwards where they have to drop certain things.
Yeah,
That's
they drop bean
incredible.
bags onto a target.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that is incredible. And these pilots travel around the world
Yep.
competing.
Yeah.
And they start from a different area and then they have to navigate their way to the targets. It's incredible.
How do you navigate a balloon? Like that blows my mind.
Yeah, yeah. That would be
Yeah.
cool to
Hmm.
learn how to do that.
Yeah, for sure. It'd be really interesting.
Mm. Okay,
Okay, last question on your side.
okay. This is a tell me about,
Mm.
and okay. Tell me about someone you admire who's older than you.
Hmm. Wow. It's awkward when you draw a blank for things. Somebody who I admire that's older than me. Um, I guess somebody that I've been following a lot lately and just kind of admiring their bravery and tenacity would be Brett Weinstein. He has a podcast called the Dark Horse Podcast, and he's part of like the intellectual dark web and like the whole like Brett and Eric Weinstein and Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris and all those people. And so I really admire the way that he and his wife do their podcast. Just their have very strong opinions, but they are very logical. They use reason. There's like references. There's a bad. They don't just react emotionally. It's like that logic, and so
Mm,
that how to have conversations in with people you disagree with, or how to present your thought in a way that's not so combative, I think is really lacking in society nowadays.
yeah,
So yeah, I think he would be on that list for sure. What
that's
about
cool.
you?
The first person who pops into my mind are my parents. I
Mm-hmm.
really admire all that. Well, I talk to them every day, so I really, well, at least my mom. I
Mm-hmm.
admire all that they've been through and all they've persevered through, and yeah, and I would say I'm closest to them too. So I've seen I've seen ups and downs for them. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
my parents.
Awesome. Okay, last question for you. Tell me about a time you felt small compared to the rest of the world.
I would say Adam and I were just talking about this the other day. We've started doing these like since we're home a lot more right now. We've started
Mhm.
doing dates where we just go through seasons of life, recapping memories, and we talked
Mm.
about the time where we were in New Zealand and there's this area called Nugget Point, and
Mhm.
um, you walk up to a lighthouse and you have this incredible view beneath you of the water on all these tiny islands, and on top of the islands there's um, little seals playing like parents sunbathing, and then the babies are playing in on top of these islands and little nooks and crannies with the water. And I remember just seeing that. Oh, and the birds were like flying at my head level, like just
Yeah.
cruising right there on the wind. And then I remember walking up to the edge and the wind just boom hitting me, and
Mm,
I just started crying. I've never been to a location where it just made me start crying.
yeah.
And it
I
was
love
one of
that
those moments where
story.
I was like, I'm happy if we never go anywhere else. This is this is incredible.
Yeah.
I guess all my senses were, you know, heightened, and I had that sort of experience. So,
Awesome.
yeah,
Oh,
that's mine. Do you
great
have one that
story.
comes to mind?
Um, I think maybe one of the times that I felt small and kind of powerless in a way, it was we lived in Panama, which we'll get to further on in the show. This whole thing's about travel a lot. And my kids and I lived in Panama and Spain for a while. When we lived in Panama, we lived on the second story of this like condo kind of building, and there was a metal roof. And so I was outside cooking because they put the stove in this particular house outside on the screened in deck so the house wouldn't get so hot when you
Oh,
were cooking.
okay.
And so I'm out there. It's like a thunderstorm. It hadn't really lightened much, but it was definitely like when it rains, it pours in Panama. It was just like, it sounds like somebody's just using a hose on the roof. It comes down so hard. It's crazy.
Hmm.
And so it was one of those kind of storms. And all of a sudden, just bright flash, huge loud bang. It was the loudest sound I've ever heard. One of my sons like started running one way in the house and then ran the other way because he didn't know where it was coming from. The other son like ran down and like laid in his bed
Oh.
because he was just like, I don't know what to do either. And it turns out he actually ran towards the lightning. The lightning struck 20 feet away on the other side of the house from where I was cooking underneath a metal roof. Like I could have died and electrocuted. So it's just that like moment of like, I'm just carrying on normal life, and a flash of light, electricity, I could have just been taken out, like no warning, just like, and your time's done. Like that's it.
Oh my
So
gosh.
it was crazy. I have a little bit of I never used to be afraid of lightning, but now I'm a little twitchy.
Yeah, I can understand why. Oh my gosh. That was so
Yeah.
close.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny because like we went outside the next day and the ground kind of smelled like burnt rubber there. Like you could see this like a channel kind of in the ground that was maybe 4 feet long and a couple inches deep of like, and there was another one a little farther away because I guess the lightning had kind of forked.
Oh,
Um, but
whoa.
yeah, it was crazy.
Did your boys see it? Like, were they, did
Well,
their vision go out for a little
no, I
bit?
mean, we all saw the flash of light, but we weren't facing the lightning. It was on the other side of the house, and
Okay.
the only window there would have been their bedroom or the deck from my bedroom, and we weren't in there. We were in the living room. So, but the light flashed all around us, of course.
Whoa. Did you
But
guys
yeah,
feel like a vibration when it hit? Do you
I
remember?
I don't remember. I just remember like, okay, that was close. Like the lightning struck close. Where did it strike? And we didn't know until the next day, of course, until like where it struck.
Yeah.
But there were like my neighbors below me lost a television and something else, like just from plugged in. They weren't even on. My kids had a oh, it wasn't an Xbox, but it was some sort of video game system that
Yeah.
it got fried.
Oh man.
And just yeah, it just took out a lot of the wiring in the house, even though it didn't strike the house. It was just close enough that yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, crazy. So be careful in tropical countries during the stormy season.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
crazy. So a lot of your work was inspired by travel. So we've talked about like kind of reminiscences about different travel a little bit so far, but kind of give us a brief recap of, you started to travel in 2014, what started that, and where did you end up going? And then why did you come back in 2018?
Yeah, so, well, first, thank you for being willing to play some of the questions. I feel like I learned some pretty cool stories about you, and it spanned, snowboarding to
Yeah.
hearing about your trip in Panama and very close call. That was insane.
Yeah. No, it's a cool book concept because, if we pass each other in the streets, we would never know the depth of each other's life experiences.
Yeah.
And I think, like, especially nowadays when the world's so polarized and we don't see people as humans as much as we used to, I don't think.
Mhm.
We see each other as labels and identities and whatever. And so having those, like, let's draw out your humanity, let's talk about the stuff that lives in your head that shows no symptoms or anything on the outside is really empowering. So I love that you created that book.
Yeah, and I think you also, when you are able to talk through things and understand someone better, you're more willing to understand their perspective on why they have certain opinions or views.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah. So, kind of our going back to your question, our travels started in 2014, and um, Adam and I, we met at the University of Georgia, and then we both moved out to Colorado, and we got married in 2012. And what travel had always been a part of our relationship. Um, we actually first started dating while we were doing a road trip up the East Coast with friends in on our senior year of college, and so um, we were always talking about world travel and traveling long term together. And so Adam's biggest question when we would go on hikes and stuff was, Lindsey, when we uh, travel around the world, we're going to be going for a few years. Are you able to pack one travel bag? And that always stressed me out because I had no idea. I didn't even like understand that concept of traveling long term with one bag. And
Yeah.
um, but travel was always a part of our conversations. And then, so Adam's an accountant, so he loves talking numbers and, budgeting and all that. So when we got married, the day after we got back from our honeymoon, we sat down and we decided to uh, put our incomes together, and half of our income would be for our expenses, and half would be saving up for our travel fund to travel the world. And we didn't know when we would go, we didn't know where we would go, but we just wanted to start saving up and working towards it. So in 2014, several different things happened that sparked us to say, okay, it's now or never. A
Mm.
lot of our friends started getting pregnant, and we were like, gosh, we want that in our future. Uh, that looked really exciting. And then, but we still wanted to travel. And then a close family member passed away, and we went home, and you know, we realized life is really short, and we need to, you know, make our dreams happen if we want to do it. And then, so we had been saving, and a friend borrowed our pickup truck, and he totaled it. He was okay, but the truck was gone. And so we decided to not get a new truck, but put that money from the insurance towards our travel fund. So that kind of boosted us. And we went down to one car. And then 2 weeks before we were going to give our notice to our employers, Adam was fired. So it was like, okay, well, these are four signs that now is the time. Let's
Yeah.
go. And I had just graduated from getting my master's, and then we left. And so we took off in our Honda Accord and then tent camped around the US for 4 months. We went to Hawaii and stayed with a friend for a month. That was super cool. Then we went to New Zealand and camper van for 5 months. And then we went on to Southeast Asia and backpacked around there. And um, and then we were missing home, so we decided to come back to the US, but we still wanted to travel. And while we were camper vanning New Zealand, we met a couple that had a little camper, and we were living in a glorified minivan with a bed in the back and
Mm-hmm.
like no toilet, no shower, no kitchen. We were pulling the mattress back to cook for every meal.
Uh-huh.
And they invited us over to their little camper, and they showed us what was possible, with a toilet and a shower and a kitchen. And so we decided when we returned to the US, we would try to find a little camper to keep traveling in. And so when you travel really fast, you get decision fatigue. It always feels like you're making all these decisions about where to go next and where you should stay and when you should go, and all those logistics decisions. And so Adam had the idea to connect with HGTV's Tiny House Hunters to see if they could help us in the process of finding a camper. So we ended up being invited on an episode, and we found our Casita travel trailer, and so that was super cool. And then we traveled around the U.S. for 2 years, living in our little camper. And what sparked us to end our travels was loneliness. Uh, so Adam has tax season every year, and when we were in New Zealand, we had been traveling for about 8 months at that time, and we really missed working on projects and being a part of things. And so Adam started building his CPA business. He started
Mm-hmm.
helping friends doing their accounting and taxes that had just started their businesses, and so they were sharing about Adam with their friends who also had businesses. So his business started building while we were traveling. And while we were in the camper, it grew even more. And we would kind of, how we travel is we find a boondocking spot or a place that's less expensive, and you can park there for a month, and it's less expensive when you pay for a month. And so Adam would be working, 6 days a week, 12, 14-hour days doing taxes. And tax season's actually 4 or 5 months out of the year. And so I
Mm-hmm.
found and on Sundays, when he wasn't working, he was just fried and didn't want to do anything.
Yeah.
So um, I was by myself a
You
lot
were a
of the time.
tax widow.
And so I was like, I'm really lonely and not happy, and we need to change something. So we had been renting out our house while we were traveling. And so we decided to return back to our house so we could choose when we were home and when we were traveling. And during tax season, we would be home. So I would be near friends and familiar places and have
Mm-hmm.
options. so, so yeah, that's why we decided to return home. And so we've been doing a part-time kind of travel lifestyle since then, where we go off in our camper for several weeks, or we did a couple months in Europe, and we got Airbnbs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, now we're kind of doing the part-time thing and traveling when we can. So
Awesome.
yeah.
So while you were traveling during those years, you just mentioned that your husband started an accounting practice and kind of gradually expanded that over time and did that while you were traveling. Did you have any businesses or work that you were doing to support your travels, or did you mostly live off savings and then what he was earning starting his business?
So it was a gradual progression from uh, working from our savings. So we saved up, I think, like $62,000 in a year and a half to travel, and 15 of that we were putting towards our emergency fund if something happened or we
Mm-hmm.
needed to come home and find jobs. We weren't really sure how long we would be going for, and we had been following Nomadic Matt, who,
Oh, I love that guy.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
he really helped us a lot figure out how to stay accountable to ourselves and our savings. And so we did his $50 a day budget.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so you only spend $50 a day while you're traveling. So we did that off of our savings. And then, so Adam slowly started, we were living off of our savings. Adam slowly started building his business. And I took a while to like decide that I wanted to work, because we had worked so hard to not work to then work
Yeah.
or decide
You're
to.
like, this was not the point.
Yes, like, didn't we work really hard so we could just travel and not work for this season of life? But
Yeah.
then I realized, okay, if we make income, we can travel longer. And
Yes.
so I started blogging, and I got a lot of encouragement from friends and family, um, that they really appreciated reading, what I was sharing. And so that, encouraged me to continue writing. And
Mhm.
I also was watching um, social media accounts for apps we were using in New Zealand. So I reached out to those folks and started working with them on their social media.
Hmm.
And so that was a little bit of income every month. And then we started getting invited to write for different online um, platforms, and so that was a little bit of income. So it kind of slowly started building into writing for me and social media. And so I would say we had a terrible experience buying a camper van in New Zealand. And so Adam had the idea to write like a guide on how to actually do it, because it was more stressful than planning our wedding. It was the most stressful week we've ever had
It's
together
kind of
as a couple.
surprising. You think it'd be you buy a camper van and it's done, but
Well, it's very intimidating buying a car in another country. And
yeah.
so we didn't know what we were doing. And we kept hearing from mechanics that, you know, first of all, New Zealand has tons of mountains. And, they were calling these camper vans that, backpackers would buy death boxes, because they would buy these junkie vans that, didn't have good brakes, or things weren't working right, and backpackers didn't know what they were doing and would hop in these vans and go, and um, you know
Yeah.
bad things would happen. And so we learned like what to do, how to be safe about it. So we wrote a guide how to buy a camper van in New Zealand. And that was really scary to write my first book and put it out there into the world. I was very scared about it, and I actually had to have a coach like coach me through the process to stay accountable to like put it out there, because I was so scared to be vulnerable. And
Uh-huh.
but we've gotten really good feedback from friends that we've given the book to, and other travelers who have found it, so that they can jumpstart their travels in New Zealand and just get going in something safe. So yeah, that kind of started my writing. And then I had a an idea for a children's book about from a dog we met in Bali named Pootie. And so I wrote a children's book after that, and now the question game. So
Nice.
yeah.
I think that's one of the main reasons that I wanted to interview you for the Meaningful Money Making Show is the way that you were able to take your experiences and the stuff that you were learning and doing along the way and then convert that from concepts or just what you happen to be doing into this source of inspirational income that allowed other people to learn how to do what you were doing, and then allowed you to like basically share the fullness of who you were and what you were doing. That's so awesome that you were able to do that.
It is super cool. And I will say that I had guides and inspiration to make me feel like this is possible. We
Mhm.
followed a couple named Mission Rob, and
Mhm.
they have published a ton of books, and they travel the world and are digital nomads. And so they inspired me that, okay, it's possible to publish books. And I also had a close friend, who had just published one. So she was kind of able to guide me in how to even do that. So
Mhm. Well, I love that I mean, you talked to your friends about it, especially ones that had done it, but also that you took the initiative to get the coach that like so many people get stuck in the intimidation of a new idea that they really want to try but they're scared or they don't know what the next step is, and so rather than just forging ahead and just like trying a bunch and failing, which is one way to do that, and like eventually you fail enough times that you find success, or it's like trying to find something in a dark room. Eventually if you try hard enough you'll get there, just might take you a while. But the coaching thing, like that can be super helpful, even if it's just a couple of meetings, just having that somebody that's been there, done that to lay out the plan for you or like to encourage you or hey, it's easy. I know you feel scared, but really all you have to do is this step, this step, this step, and you're done, rather than this whole overwhelming crazy thing we build stuff up to be in our head.
yeah, and it was so nice to have her accountability week by week. So we would create goals every week, and then I would have to report back to her on if I, finished those. And I was able to talk through these obstacles I was feeling or I couldn't figure out. And she would walk me through like how to problem solve it. And so And I had already put in so much time writing the book and it was to help people. And the more I waited, the less I wouldn't be helping anyone with our experience
Mm,
and knowledge. So,
yeah.
yeah. But so yeah, having help outside of me is was huge.
I
Absolutely.
love what you just said about like kind of holding back your knowledge or the helpfulness that you could be giving
Yeah.
because you're scared is in some ways a little, maybe selfish is too strong a word, but you're not serving a purpose that you could be serving, or you're not doing meaningful work that you could be doing fairly easily just because of that fear that we let kind of hold us back so much.
I know, I know. And when we read books or we're searching for help, we don't expect to see a perfect presentation for it to help
Yes.
us. We're
Yes.
we still get concepts from books where we see a grammar error, or something like that. So it's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay to not be
Mhm.
perfect. I'm
Yeah.
slowly learning that.
Yeah. And I guess this kind of references like the first things that we were talking about when this episode started is the like, do the imperfect action, share what you learned along the way. And it's that to me, like for people that kind of follow in my different groups on social media or that are my coaching students and things, that whole like admission of I'm not perfect. This is what went wrong, but this is how I solved it.
Mhm.
It's that whole concept of teaching the person to fish rather than handing them the fish of like the knowledge. It's like, this is my process for solving problems. You can implement this same process in your life to solve your own problems.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just it's even more empowering, even though you have to like humble yourself a little bit and admit that you're not, the guru on the hill that knows everything. Like,
Yeah.
which who wants to be that anyways? But we feel like we have to be that in order to share any sort of knowledge at all.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And one thing I've learned through just trying new things and overcoming my fears, is okay, but also like having big dreams or things I want to do is okay, what's worked in the past that has made me successful reaching a past goal that
Hmm.
can help me in this problem or journey.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome. So 2018 happens. You decide that it's time to come back stateside. But it sounds like from what I was reading on your blog, one of the first things that you did was crude for somebody that was like running across from one side of the United States to the other. Was that the first thing you did when you got back?
Yeah, pretty much. So we got back, I think, in November of 2015, and so I believe he started his race like early 2016, and
Mhm.
so we were visiting friends and family before that, and getting our camper actually. But we had met this couple, um, Adam Kimball and Karen, his wife, on Instagram, and we met up in Vietnam. And they, during our meeting at a coffee shop, they shared their plan of coming back and Adam running across the country and trying to break the Guinness World Record. And we were like, that sounds incredible. Do you need help going across the country? And we had shared we were planning to get a little camper anyway. So we kind of just stayed in touch, and they had really good friends who I think had supported Adam on his races in the past, and so um, they were on the crew too, and they found an RV, so we were two RVs crossing the country together. Unfortunately, Adam got injured the first
Mm.
afternoon, and so
Oh,
things slowed down, but he finished. He crossed the
wow.
country even injured. He was amazing. So
Crazy.
yeah.
So, did he pay you to crew, or were you doing other things to support yourself on that part of your adventure?
Oh my gosh, you just brought back memories. So Adam had a tax season during that time. So
Mm. Oh my
we
goodness.
and I was writing the camper van book. So while we were so kind of how our days looked is we would wake up, I think, at before 5 a.m., and Adam would
Ouch.
start at 5, and then we would we would go, our little camper would go every 5 miles. So, and he would take 5 miles at a time. So
Mm.
while we were waiting for Adam, we would work on, I would work on my book and Adam would work on taxes. So
Uh-huh.
it was crazy. That brings up a lot of
Yeah.
memories.
Oh my goodness.
And
I guess,
I think after that we decided, okay, during tax season we need to be in one location.
yeah. Yeah, I imagine it'd be easy to like lose your train of thought or get a little disorganized if you were always moving when you had like such a heavy workload.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
But my Adam, my husband, is super organized, and yeah,
Mhm.
he was able to cope with those crazy circumstances really well. I did not, but he did.
So you were kind of just supporting him, not really earning from that so much as just like your husband was doing the taxes and you were laying the foundations of the book that you were writing.
Right. I think I
Mhm.
was writing some articles too. So we also wrote, we were like the remote office for Gear Junkie, and so we would write articles for them um, every month too. So I think that was also supporting us.
Got it. Yeah, that helps.
So kind of
Awesome.
putting things together.
Yes. So when you got back stateside, in addition to getting your 3 books published, which you self-published, correct?
Yes, I did through Amazon's. It was Create Space at that point, but now it's Kindle Direct Publishing (KDP).
Mhm. And for your children's book, I imagine there's a lot of illustrations. Did you do those illustrations yourself?
No, I put a ask out on Facebook. Does anyone know an illustrator? And so a friend shared her friend who had illustrated a children's book. She'd done one before, Pootie the Traveling Pelican, and so uh, we were both new at it, so we kind of bartered
Mm.
services for each other. So she did the illustrations, and I paid her, but also did some family photo shoots for her. So yeah, that was really nice to be able to be creative about that partnership.
Yeah. Yeah, I think especially when you're starting out, being like not being afraid to ask for those barters or to work with other people that are new in what they're doing.
Mhm.
Like it's about the one step at a time. And so many people try and like jump to the top of the hill rather than the stair step. So being willing to start that smaller, okay, I'm a newbie, you're a newbie, let's newbie together and get to the next step on the
Yeah,
journey.
totally. Yeah, and I believe she has written her own children's book now. So she's done the illustrations and written the story. So that is
Good.
so cool.
Yeah. So, bartering photography. So, one of the things that you started doing when you got back stateside was taking up like portrait photography and family photography. Was that one of your first photo shoots, or was it already a service that you were starting to offer? How'd that work timeline wise?
That was so her name's Lauren Klickner, and she had just, when we first started working together, she was pregnant, and then I believe, yeah, she had her baby like right after she was done doing the illustrations. So she is amazing. Oh my gosh. So I did her newborn born photos for her little girl, uh, you know, as a part of our partnership. So yeah, that was a new adventure for me. I remember being very stressed out, but I remember after we did the photo shoots, I just was crying, like editing all of her little girl's photos, and I was like, I love this so much. This is so special. She'll never be this tiny ever again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I fell in love with babies at that point.
Nice. Speaking of which, you happen to have one of your own now, correct?
Yeah, we have a 1-year-old little boy, and it's been such a fun year with him. So, yeah, a whole new
Nice.
perspective on life.
Yeah. Yeah, it changes you as a person. You have to become a lot less of a selfish human being when there's a child involved.
Oh, yeah, you have to be super flexible, and, uh, you know, his schedule trumps mine. So
Yeah.
I have to figure out when I'm going to do things based on him. So I don't choose.
Right. Yeah. Well, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So, one of the things that I struggle with a little, not in entrepreneurship, but as an entrepreneur, is I
Hmm.
have a hard time having hobbies for the sake of having hobbies. Like
Yeah.
in my head, I find something I'm interested in and I'm initially attracted to it the way one would be attracted to a hobby. But then my little business entrepreneurial brain starts clicking and the little hamster starts running on the wheel. And it turns into like, oh, and I could do this and sell this or teach this. And like it turns into this big production when really all I should have is like maybe you should just watercolor for fun rather than trying to like learn how to illustrate or like turning into logos, or maybe you should just like have a freaking hobby, woman.
And just
um
enjoy it.
yeah, and it's just something that's so hard for me to do as somebody like yourself who basically has made her business and her career a reflection of what you do in your life. Do you ever like have a tendency to make choices of like I'm going to try this because of the like income or business or book potential, or do you still have the ability to have hobbies?
I am right there with you in how you think about things. I really struggle with finding a hobby that I just do to enjoy. Um, I totally agree. I With my travels, I have really had a hard time separating like our travels side of things and our like personal life. It's been a really hard journey for me in my mental space with that.
Yeah, well, especially as somebody who blogs what they're traveling, like you have to be one of those Instagram people to like go and get the photo of the place, or like instead of just being a tourist for the hell of it.
Yeah, or just trying to figure out what to share or what perspective to share that would be helpful to people, but also it do I want to share this for me and my memories and
Mhm.
our experience, or do I want to share it to help people? And there's two different ways to write that,
Yeah.
so or share it. So I've had a hard time with that. So I've still, how many years have we been traveling? Since 2014, 6 years. I'm still like having a hard time with that, and even learning how to do photography. So when we were writing for Gear Junkie, they had shared with me like if you can write and then if you can work a camera, like you're steps ahead of other writers. So I jumped in on learning how to do photography from that inspiration, and then I was starting to think about, how I could package writing and photography together,
Mhm.
and that kind of thing. And so and the potential that's there with that skill. And so I totally understand what you're saying. And it's funny because Adam and I take turns on, Saturdays, like he'll have the morning and I'll have the afternoon to do whatever we want, and he goes on a bike ride and I'm like, and I end up doing errands because I don't know what else to do, because
Yeah.
I I'm like, just do something for fun. Like, what do you like to do for fun?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I struggle with that also.
Mhm. I bet you that's common. And I wonder if that's just like part and parcel with being entrepreneurial. It's just like that's just the way you're wired and you just kind of have to roll with it.
Yeah, maybe we see the potential of a skill we have, and
Yeah,
how we can maximize that for
I think so.
ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and I think another part of it is like having a hobby for the sake of having a hobby almost feels like a waste of, maybe a waste of time or a waste of potential, or I could be doing something that would be building this dream that I have. So why would I do something so flippantly just for fun, like, but there's so much I could be doing instead.
Yeah.
That yeah. So as a person who makes their living and describing that to people, do you have a hard time kind of separating your work hours from your living hours, like so you can have time to be a mom and not be thinking about business, or be a wife and not be thinking about what you should be blogging about or what your next book is about?
That's really hard. And I feel like, so Adam and I come from this perspective of we we travel together, we work together, we live together, we do life together, we do everything together. And so we really tried to be very diligent and intentional about like cutoff times and not talking about work, um, after work hours. And that kind of stifles some creativity, but it's also really healthy too. So I found freedom when a friend, we were in like a group of nomadic couples, and a friend, she gave us the permission that there's no line when you work together with your spouse and you work from home. But
Yeah.
I did listen to a podcast recently where a woman was sharing that she watches Jeopardy at the end of her workday every day, and I was like, that's a brilliant idea, like something,
Like ritual.
yeah, a ritual every day, and she plays on her phone too. So I thought that was a super cool idea, like a designated time, like it, and like a debriefing time, because
Yeah.
we work from our camper. We were working from our camper, and now it's our office that sits in our driveway when we're home. And we just walk inside, and then we haven't had time to debrief or decompress. And so yeah, we're still trying to figure that out. But one thing we have figured out for us as a couple working together is software that is like this third party, so we're not jumping in on each other when we're trying to concentrate and ask random
Mm.
questions.
So like
Every
Trello or something like that.
Well, so I help Adam with his accounting firm, sometimes, and so we use Jetpack workflow for that. But we have used Trello in the past. Jetpack is just more for accounting firms, but yeah, just somewhere that all the information is stored instead of you having to talk it out all the time. That has been so helpful.
I love that idea. I think that's really great for couples that live and work together, or even just like business partnerships if you're seeing each other all the time. It's not I think it probably takes away some of the element of like the naggy feeling that maybe either you feel you're being or the other person feels you're being, when it's like, no, we do have to ship that stuff today. Well, it's on the schedule. That's why we have to ship it, not because I'm telling you.
Right, right. It's in the software. It's in our project, profile, whatever. It's the next step. You should have been notified by the software.
Yeah.
I think about that for, families who work together, like siblings or parents and kids, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
too. And friendships also. So,
Yeah, I love that. That is a great tip for, even if you're not both entrepreneurs, but just one of you is, or like you said, parents with kids, just getting kind of scheduled so it's less of a nuisance in your interpersonal relationships.
yeah, yeah. But I
Hmm.
think the balance is really tough. And so I feel like we revisit that a lot, and
Hmm.
we try to figure that out for
Yeah, and
ourselves.
you probably will forever. Like, it's just life changes, and you kind of have to learn to change with it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you have a lot of different things going on between, like managing and promoting the three books and your photography and then your blogs and all of that jazz. How do you keep it all organized so that stuff doesn't fall through the cracks?
That's a great question.
You're like, tell me how to do it, please.
Okay, so, and it's changed now that I'm a new mom too, and figuring
Yeah.
out when to work and how I work. But what I've learned to do is, for me, I have asked myself, okay, what is the minimum things I can do to still make progress and be proud or happy, or satisfied with what's getting done. And
Hmm.
so, with social media, I feel like we're told that we should be posting 3 times a day and using 30 hashtags and doing these kind of stories. And that takes a lot of time. And so, with different seasons of life, I've decided, okay, I'm just going to do, I've started looking more at analytics. Like a friend said, like what's actually moving the needle and putting your focus there. And so, sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm during some seasons of life, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to post twice a week and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Or I've started scheduling just one newsletter a month and I'll be happy with that. I've connected with people, I've shared information. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I've come from that perspective. And then I've also time blocked my time. So as of now, we do, I do like, well, I've started waking up at 5 a.m. So I get an hour before my son wakes up. I get an hour and a half his first nap, and then maybe 2 hours in the afternoon. And
Mm-hmm.
so I can't work after he goes to sleep. My brain is just fried.
Yeah.
So it has to be early. Uh, so I time block. So NuVenture travels will be the 5 o'clock hour. Um, and then, you know, and then the morning nap, and then NuVenture CPA will be Adam's firm will be the afternoon nap, that kind of thing. So I've
Nice.
started doing that.
Time blocking is super useful. I think more people should try that sort of thing.
Yeah, and before I had Weston, before he was a part of our lives, I was doing the same thing. You know, I would do like Tuesdays and Thursdays were NuVenture travels, and Mondays and Wednesdays were NuVenture CPA, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do
Nice.
it that way.
So I would imagine, just based on the way that a lot of people have so much busy work as an entrepreneur, that like you said, they think it's moving the needle, but it's not really doing much, but they're doing it because people told them they had to, or they think it's a requirement or whatever. Did you notice any sort of negative shift in your traffic or your profits or anything when you shifted to that, what's the minimum I could do? Or was it the case that your business flow kind of stayed the same and you just dumped off a lot of unnecessary stuff you shouldn't have been doing anyways?
That's a really funny question, or a good one, and I haven't thought about it in that way. But when I focused on just blog posts and newsletters, sending out newsletters, I had the best holiday season I had last holiday season, and that led me to think, oh, I should improve my question game. It because I had originally written it like, here's a bunch of questions that I think are really fun to play with. Let's see if this works. And it's been really successful. So I created the second edition that just came out this past November. And yeah, thinking about it back now, it started when I was just being really intentional with newsletters and blog posts, every month, that because I was preparing for maternity leave because I was
Mm,
pregnant. So so yeah, when I became really focused on, okay, what is actually most important, that that helped a lot.
mm-hmm.
So
Interesting. Cool. So, talk to us a little bit about your strategy now as a mother. Your whole life has shifted. You said, your time has gone from like doing whatever you want, whenever you want, to like now I have an hour and a half, and like 2 hours, and that's it.
Mhm.
Have your growth plans for the future shifted? I imagine they would have had to, but have you had to like rein stuff in or just be more strategic, or how has that shifted your like forward momentum?
I would say I've definitely had to, be more intentional and be more thoughtful about what I'm doing. Um, I got so my perspective right now is that I've been trying to think about is, okay, Lindsey, if you were your best friend, what would you be telling them they should be doing
Mm.
in your shoes? Because I feel like I feel like you are an awesome idea generator for other people. Like you've
Mm.
shared that in some of our conversations with me.
Thank you.
And, and, I feel like I'm also that for other people, but when it comes to me, I see the limitations that I have first,
Mm.
and then and so I like negate a lot of ideas for myself, I think, or I don't even
Mhm.
have them because I am limiting. myself because of my time or whatever. So I guess I'm coming from a perspective recently of, if you were your best friend, what would you be telling yourself that you should be doing, or
Mm-hmm.
ideas you should be having? So I'm I'm really focused on when I have a grand idea, like, oh, I should ask that person if they know someone that my book could be sold in this store, like make that happen,
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
trying to to take action on those small items that may be feeling too big, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, that's a really important point. And I think that, I mean, having a business coach can be really, really valuable if
oh
you
yeah.
treat it the way that it should be treated. But a lot of the times, I mean, there are business coaches, of course, that will give you some ideas that you might not have thought of. But a lot of it is like, that stuff that you've been putting off doing for the past like 2 years that you're supposed to be doing and you haven't done. Yeah, you should do that. And now I'm holding you accountable to it. And
Mhm.
so having that like best friend, or one of the things I tell some of my coaching clients to do is to name that person, and so that you
Mhm.
have like the two voices in your head. So in your case, the ones that like best friend character, but to have like that coach in your head that like when you have those ideas, like, oh, coach so and so, yes, or if you're stuck, like, what would coach so and so tell me to do? And it's you, and you know what to do. It just gets stuck in there. Or you're just want to procrastinate, or you'd rather play on the internet or whatever.
Mhm.
But like you need to be doing it. But then there's the negative voice in your head that we all
Mhm.
suffer with,
Mhm.
and like that one, I tell people to give like a really funny name to, like, oh, Norbert's at it again. Like, shut up, Norbert. Like, you don't need to be telling me that. You're such a liar, Norbert. Like, to just separate that from yourself to a degree, too, because, of course, everybody has that voice. And the whole point of that voice most of the time is to try and protect us. Like, we're trying to save ourselves from embarrassment or messing up or failing or whatever it is that we're deeply afraid of. And that's where that negative voice comes from. It's out of our love for ourselves that we're telling ourselves those things, but sometimes you just don't need to hear it. And so that separation, like giving it a name and telling it to go away, can be really empowering too for a lot of people that struggle with that.
Oh yeah. My
Mm.
my negative Nancy is Carol.
Carol.
Carol, get away.
Yes. You're being ridiculous, Carol.
I do need to name a I need to create a coach name though. So I'll
Yeah.
be thinking about that.
Some people talk to their like future self, like,
Oh.
my future self is everything I want to be, right? They're super successful and all of these different ideas I have, and they've arrived. And so if you're at that position and you don't know what to do, like, okay, what would future Jen tell me to do right now? Like, how
Oh.
did future Jen overcome this issue to get where future Jen is now? And that can help you navigate also.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant.
Hmm. So, what is your favorite thing about being an entrepreneur? Like, what drives you?
I would say what continues to drive me is the freedom that we found in
Mhm.
being able to travel and being able to build our businesses. there's
Mhm.
there's the freedom is of choosing where we are, when we are, and when we do our work or when we have fun
Yeah.
is really awesome. And I will say it's funny, like we worked really hard to have this freedom, but we found that creating a schedule is is really good for us. So we reverted back to the schedule and having a consistent schedule, because otherwise we would wake up kind of lost and not knowing what to do with ourselves.
Yes,
um,
yes.
but now it's a choice that we wake up at this time, and so we're making that choice for ourselves. So freedom in our own schedule. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's that balance between, going off the deep end of fun and, being responsible and adulting.
And accomplishing what you want to, like your big
Yeah.
dreams, what having a schedule to keep you accountable is a part of that.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, I would say that.
So we are at the part of the show where I have a bunch of rapid fire questions that I want to just go through. You can take as long as you want to answer them. If you have a couple sentences, that's cool. But let's get started with the first one, and it's: Are you happy?
I'm very happy right now.
Hmm. As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
My first thought is a teacher or salesperson. I was always playing teacher, or I was selling the furniture in my parents' living room to imaginary people.
Did they like barter with you or try and get you down in the price?
I don't
Yeah.
know. I would always just present the furniture. Well, this one costs, $25.
That's
That
awesome.
just flashed back to me.
Oh, that's amazing. What keeps you up at night? I mean, aside from your son.
Right. I would say all of the things that I would like to accomplish that I haven't yet.
Mm.
So,
If you could change one thing about your business right now, what would it be?
I would really love to learn how to create an app and have an app for my question game so people can pull it out if they forget the book or, when they're together.
That's fun. I like that idea. What are your goals in the next 1 to 5 years? Business and personal, but mostly business.
Okay, for business, I would like to. I have some other question game ideas, and I would like to do those within the next year or 2 years. And I would really love to learn how to code this
Hmm.
next year to be able to have the app as a reality. And personal goals, we would really, well, a travel goal is to buy a camper van in Europe and then keep it there so we can just
Mm.
travel there and explore, jump in the camper and explore, and then keep it stored there, and friends can take it out if they want. So that's a travel goal we have. And then another personal goal is I've been really curious about um, um, investment properties because when we travel right now, we Airbnb our house while we're gone,
Mhm.
and it would be cool to see if we could do it full time with
Mhm.
a property. So I've been curious
Nice.
about that. So that's another goal.
Awesome. So what's your big dream?
My big dream is to have a life where we have a lot of fun, and I see that being where we can go travel for a couple months and either in the US or abroad, and where we're spending a lot of time together, where we're enjoying what we're working on, and yeah, just that freedom, that continued freedom to be where we want to be when we want to be and be working on fun and exciting things where we're learning and growing. That's
Awesome.
my dream.
What are some practices that you include in your life that help to make your life more meaningful?
I would say every morning when I do wake up early, I try to have, I don't know, I call it my quiet time. And so I do a journal that my friend Casey wrote where it's the Lord's Prayer, and you work through the Lord's Prayer. And that gives me a lot of hope every day and also perspective of
Mm.
what's ahead for me. So quiet time and prayer in the morning, and then I try to walk every day. Um, I've lost a lot of weight this year, and walking has been the foundation of that. And I've learned that it just makes me feel a lot better, and I gain a lot of clarity on problems I'm having with work and that type of thing. So,
Mm.
so walking too.
Awesome. If you could give our listeners any 2 or 3 pieces of advice, what would they be?
I would say anything is figure outable. Like you can
Mm.
figure out anything. You can Google anything. You
Yes.
can connect with people and figure out anything. It's figure outable. You can do it. I would also say do not worry about perfection. Put something out there that you're dreaming about and see if it works, and just try it out and make improvements as it goes, like I did with my question game. Um, and then number three is you can do it. You can do whatever you have in your mind, and um, yeah, take your next step, and then take the next step, and then take the next step, and you'll get there.
Mhm. I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Please tell our listeners where they can connect with you online.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen. This has been awesome. You've made me think about a lot of things. Good
Good.
questions. Um, if anyone's interested in connecting, I'm on Instagram and Facebook at NuVenture Travels and on my website, nuventuretravels.com.
Awesome. And of course, all of that's going to be in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Lindsey.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.